He writes, "So since I made a statement about what happened last year, I've been getting a lot of questions that have nothing to do with it. Thanks for the empathy, assholes, but I'll help you anyway." One of the common questions is, what happened with Bloodlines 2? I'm paraphrasing since they're not usually that polite or brief. It's also usually the only question. Well, beyond who would win a fight between Darth Revan and Darth Nihilus. Spoiler, Revan always wins. For those not in the know, Bloodlines 2 is a sequel to Vampire Bloodlines, developed by Troika Games and published by Activision in 2004. It has a big cult following, and mods are still being developed for it to this day. Wesp5 especially, bless his modding soul. I know a lot of developers who worked on the original, and they have their own stories to share, but those stories won't surprise anyone in the industry. Still, they did an incredible job. It's one of those games you remember. In our industry, you can't ask for much more than that. It's the highest compliment to have your game talked about years, if not decades later. Bloodlines was one of those games. Now, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 was the sequel. 16 years later, Paradox Interactive was the publisher. They haven't done any RPG games themselves to my knowledge, yet I guess. However, what people may be unaware of, Paradox did not approach the actual developer. Hardsuit Labs, who also haven't done RPGs to my knowledge, were the ones who pitched the projects to Paradox. The whole pitch went so dandy, the two of them went into business together, and Paradox even went so far as to acquire a significant percentage of Hardsuit Labs. This is public knowledge. A little about Hardsuit Labs. I'll let their website speak for itself. Hardsuit Labs was founded in 2015 with the same goal as every other game development studio that has ever existed: to make great games. It takes talented, driven people to make great games. Here at the lab, we work hard to create and to maintain an environment that not only attracts those people and keeps them here, but that allows them to thrive and do what they do best: make great games. It's not always as easy as it sounds, but it really is that simple. What sets us apart is the way we make that happen. It's all about our people. Oy. I'll post a picture of what I just read there, since it's in the article. Chris continues. So the Bloodlines 2 pitch. I know all about this process, not just because it's public knowledge, but because I was there for the pitch meeting. The pitch meeting happened in Las Vegas. I almost forgot why it was in Vegas, but then I remembered it's also where the DICE convention happens every year, when there isn't a pandemic. If you're not familiar with DICE, you're not missing much. As one described it, it's where game executives go to jerk each other off, pretend to facilitate contracts, give awards to themselves, and compliment each other on the hard work the developers at their studios do. The biz dev guys go there to feed on these same executives and devour them slowly from within like humanoid parasites from the movie The Bay. It's all part of the vampiric theme. Continues. So, Paradox and Hardsuit were in Las Vegas for DICE. We, being schleps, went there without going to DICE because we are not executives. I went because I wanted to help Hardsuit with the pitch. I had been working with Hardsuit for some time prior on the title, and to encourage the Paradox folks, the pitch was a good idea because I knew the Paradox folks from years before. This encouragement was very selfish of me, and in retrospect of all that was going to happen, probably kind of shitty. Yes, selfish. Yes, shitty. Still, it wasn't hard to rationalize. It had been so many years since the original. I wanted someone to do it, and I thought Bloodlines fans, including me, had waited long enough. I was mostly thinking of myself, though, because, surprise, I wanted to work on it in any capacity. Now that Paradox had secured the vampire license, it seemed like it could finally happen, if we could just convince them to do it. Interestingly, Hardsuit didn't even get 1/3 of the way through the PowerPoint pitch before we stopped it and just started to chat with Paradox about the project more informally, to get them more engaged in the idea. PowerPoints are easy to zone out to. Paradox did get engaged. They agreed, put pen to paper, blah blah blah. To fill you in on what I did on the project, since most people think I was booted from it last year, along with everyone else, this news is attributed to some poorly worded public statements from the usual round of idiots that got passed through a filter held by an idiot and poured into an idiot glass and then passed out to the public and marketed as a refreshing new mineral water that was ultimately passed through your bladder and your toilet. Thanks for that, idiots. You could have just said, contract was over. Well, I guess I'm an idiot. I am sorry, Chris. I did not know. I should have done better looking into, but now I do. I've read your words. And here it is. I was wrong. Chris was not fired. I'm sorry for ever thinking you were fired. I was misinformed. Your contract was over. Chris continues. To explain my contract, I worked on Bloodlines 2 for almost 2.5 years, from 2016 to mid-2018. Then my contract came to an end. They didn't use anything I wrote during that time, which was a number of major characters and side missions. Check my LinkedIn. This made me sad, but it's not my choice. The whole experience was like the last 5 minutes of Barton Fink. Not the beach scene, the scene before it. Know it all. But stretched out over 2.5 years. Even if I had known all that work was useless, I'd have written it anyway. Even though it's part of your life, you don't get back. You can't really dwell on it too much. I've been on projects where a lot more got thrown away. As Bloodlines 2 proved for almost everyone on it in the end, apparently. Oh, that's a bit worrisome, isn't that? What does he mean, a lot got thrown away by everyone? Don't know how I feel about that. So what happened after? Why did the staff change? Why did it move to another developer? Did it actually move to a developer, or is that bullshit? To all of you asking, I have no fucking idea. I'm still catching up myself, as I've been out of the loop so long on social outlets, but here's what I can say. Nobody I worked with in the trenches is still there, and I have never asked them what happened. It all sounded painful. Not only did I not know why they were fired, were let go, quit, or whatever, but I respect their right to speak for themselves, and they have, although in a limited capacity. I do think they were classy and respectful in their responses. It's also litigious and unpleasant for those who get the boot if you're not classy, respectful, and brief to the point of non-explaining. So don't blame them if you think they should have said more. They can't. And if they did, none of you would go to bat for them against the howling mob of lawyers bursting through the walls. Also, even if you know the reasons why someone else was fired, you can't really say them. But what most people don't know is even the company won't say why they're really firing you, which may surprise you, unless you're in management. And then you're probably whispering to yourself right now going, oh yeah, that's the way to do it. That's because managers know that saying next to nothing while you're firing someone is the best policy. Why? I'm glad you asked. The reason why a company won't say why they're firing X or Y person, because 1, they've often written their employment contract so they don't ever have to give a reason, called a firing at will contract. And 2, giving the poor schlep more information on why they're getting fired puts them, the company, at risk. And most contracts are set up so the company does not have to give diddly squat when it comes to the reasons before showing these people the door. It sucks, but it's the reality. Gotta protect the good old executive row from being too clear as to why they're giving out pink slips. Oh, that's gross. Chris continues. Was I disappointed at the news of the project getting shut down? Fuck yes. It was the sequel to one of the best RPGs of all time with one of the original writers for the first game. The first game is a cult classic. It's awesome. The characters and voice acting, which Brian Mitsoda had a large part in, and so did Womb's music directors and audio, are first rate. To be clear, me and Brian Mitsoda don't get along. This is because he is way too tall, and I hate his fingerless gloves. He probably hates me because I am short and I do not wear gloves that aren't made from human skin. Despite our height differences and choice in gloves, however, I have a lot of respect for him. He is the first person to use filth maven to describe a monster on the unreleased Torn RPG all the way back at Black Isle Studios. Yes, he worked there too, do your research. and I still can't get that fucking description out of my head. Thanks, Brian, you filth maven. That's actually pretty funny. Chris continues. When I finally found out Brian Mitsoda was fired, quite suddenly it seems, my reaction was, what the everlasting fuck? One of the best, if not the best, qualities of Bloodlines 1 was the writing. It's not even up for debate. If you want to debate it, good luck to you in your future endeavors and be prepared to lose. A lot. Then I read deeper and got to the part about Mitsoda being used for marketing and how that takes a physical and mental toll. Boy, did I understand. See, this may come as a shock, but writers don't usually get into writing, and especially writing for games, because gee, they like being in front of the public and mouthing marketing catchphrases. It fucking sucks. Then I read deeper and got to the part about Mitsoda being used for marketing and how that takes a physical and mental toll. Boy, did I understand. See, this may come as a shock, but writers don't usually get into writing, and especially writing for games, because gee, they like being in front of the public and mouthing marketing catchphrases. It fucking sucks. It also fucking sucks to prop someone up, have them advertise your game is the real deal, and then yank the rug out at the end. It's not just shitty to the person you're doing it to. It's shitty to the players who have been listening to all the hype all this time. It makes it seem like you don't know what the fuck you're doing. But that's just my opinion. I have no insights on the project I can share. No one I worked with in the trenches still works at Heartsuit Labs. Even more interestingly, the Paradox producers I used to work with aren't at Paradox anymore either. I haven't asked them what happened, but if they ever reach out, boy am I listening. But it's probably telling people on both sides of the ocean quit or were let go or whatever. I suspect Brian was brought on to give it more validity to the project's success and perception. Rick puts it better by using the word soul below. Brian was instrumental in the pitch. To be clear, Brian was brought on before I was, and both he and the creative director reached out to me. The director, in his own words, was triggered by a quote on my Twitter timeline that made him think it was a possibility. I now have no idea if that ended up being good or bad. I always advocated that if you did a sequel, you should try and bring on the original staff, especially the writers, because keeping the tone of the first game is good, and it's real easy to mess up with brand new staff or brand new developers. That's my suspicion about Brian. Me? I suspect I was brought on because I gave the project RPG validity, which the critics who hate me most should have a field day with, and I agree. Even I'm laughing as I write this. Since Heartsuit Labs hadn't done an RPG before, they are mostly known for shooters, which isn't the best fit for a game like Bloodlines since, well, the franchise isn't really about guns. I'd like to think I helped during the pitch, but that's for others to judge. Paradox certainly signed the damn thing, and I didn't even have to blow anyone. This time. After the signing, it was like a chorus of angels, or distant howling of a werewolf pack during their monthly moonlit night of fucking. I thought it was a dream come true to be able to work on it. Who wouldn't? I'm still happy I got the chance. Even if the process seems to be somewhere now. I'm not sure where. Don't take that as a negative like most. I genuinely have no idea what's going on with it, where it is, or if it's still breathing. Vampire-inspired projects probably don't breathe anyway. I should mention, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but aside from the hard work of the original team, the modding community, yes, West 5, you again, it's also important to recognize that a good part of what made the characters in Bloodlines 1 great wasn't just the art, writing, and animation. It's also the voice casting and voice director. A lot of people don't see or appreciate what a good voice director does, but trust me, they are a big part of what makes crappy dialogue, I'm referring to mine especially, sing and suddenly, those lines you wrote hopped up on coffee don't seem so bad. That means I was also very excited about the fact that Womb Music was brought on board to do the music and voice direction for Bloodlines 2. And they're excellent at what they do. Not everyone knows this, but Rick Schaffer from Womb did an AMA on Reddit where he talks about Bloodlines 2, and there's quotes you don't want to miss. I agree with a lot of them, but if I were to sum up one of the most important posts related to what I've been jabbering on about, it's this. Rick Schaffer on the AMA replied to a question saying, "Thank you for the compliment. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was such an inspiring game to work on. I can't really talk about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, but I will say Brian Mitsoda leaving was devastating. He was the soul of the project. Oof. Chris continues on. If you can take the time, pop in, check out the thread, and if you feel the same, give some upvotes. The thread is worth reading. Note that I have never met Rick in person, and we don't work together, and we don't have a romantic relationship, which probably comes as a relief to his wife. No idea what's next for Bloodlines 2, but if they're not using Mitsoda's work, I don't really know what to expect. It feels like a huge waste, frankly. It sucks for the people who worked on it. It sucks for Heartsuit. It sucks for Paradox. So, what's happening with Bloodlines 2? Answer: I have no fucking idea. Thank you, Bloodlines fans. I hope that useless answer serves to answer all your useless questions from now on until the end of time. My Bloodlines 2 work was one of the many work perspectives and insights I didn't include in my original post on the events from last year, and the subsequent truth of the events in the accuser's own words, but wanted to put this particular bloodsucker to bed, or coffin, whatever. Thanks for reading. In the meantime, I'll be waiting for Bloodlines 2, just like the rest of you.